The massive chamber stretched across what seemed like miles, its crystalline walls reflecting the light of 1,000 distant stars. Representatives from dozens of alien species filled the floating platforms that orbited the central speaking area. Some had tentacles instead of arms, others breathed methane through gill-like slits, and a few existed as pure energy contained within shimmering force fields. Ambassador Veltar, of the Hegemony, adjusted his ceremonial robes for the third time. The purple fabric, woven with threads of precious metals from his homeworld, caught the light as he moved. His 4 eyes scanned the assembly with satisfaction. Today would be simple. Today would be routine. The Sol Isolation Treaty comes up for renewal, he announced, his voice carrying easily through the chamber's acoustic design. As it has for the past 3 centuries, the Council must vote to maintain humanity's containment within their single star system. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. The decision seemed obvious. Humanity had been trouble from the moment they achieved faster-than-light travel. Their first contact with the peaceful Andromedans had ended in a trade dispute that somehow escalated into a full military engagement. Their second contact with the scholarly vegan collective had resulted in the humans reverse engineering advanced technology within weeks and improving upon it. They learned too quickly, whispered Council Member Zothra, her serpentine form coiled on her platform. They adapt too fast. They ask too many questions. And they fight too well, added General Kexmore, his massive frame casting shadows across nearby platforms. 1 human ship disabled 3 of our patrol vessels before we could even scan their weapons. Veltar nodded sagely. The stories were legendary now. Humans who could jury-rig alien technology with spare parts and determination. Human soldiers who treated impossible odds as merely challenging. Human scientists who looked at problems that had stumped galactic civilization for millennia and asked, "Have you tried turning it off and on again?" The chamber's main entrance dilated and a single figure walked through. The human delegate moved with quiet confidence, her black hair pulled back in a simple style, her dark blue uniform crisp and professional. Admiral Kim Soo-jin had represented Earth for only 2 years, but she had already gained a reputation for speaking little and listening much. Admiral Kim Veltar called out, his tone patronizing. "We trust you're here to discuss the terms of the treaty renewal, perhaps some adjustments to your trade allowances." Kim walked to the center of the chamber, her footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. She carried no briefcase, no documents, no ceremonial items. Her hands were empty, but her eyes held something that made several council members shift uncomfortably. "Honored council members," she began, her voice clear and steady. "Earth has considered your treaty renewal proposal carefully." Good, Veltar smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "We can discuss the minor details later. The important thing is maintaining galactic stability." Kim looked around the chamber slowly, making eye contact with dozens of alien representatives. "We reject it." The words hung in the air like a physical presence. For a moment, nobody moved, nobody breathed. A constant hum of life support systems. It seemed suddenly loud. "I'm sorry," Veltar said, his voice strained. "Could you repeat that?" "Earth formally rejects the treaty renewal," Kim said calmly. "The Sol system is no longer bound by galactic restrictions, effective immediately." Laughter began somewhere in the upper platforms, a high-pitched giggle from the ethereal collective, rumbling chuckle from the Silicon Brotherhood. Soon, dozens of species were laughing, the sound creating a chaotic symphony of amusement. "You cannot reject the treaty," Veltar said, his own voice barely containing mirth. "You have no choice in the matter. The Council decides." The Council has always decided. Kim waited for the laughter to die down. When she spoke again, her voice was soft, but somehow it carried to every corner of the vast chamber. "The Council decided to give humanity 3 centuries of uninterrupted research and development time. We used it wisely." Research General Kexmore's laughter boomed across the chamber. "What research? You've been isolated, cut off from galactic civilization. You've learned nothing." "You've learned everything," Kim replied simply. Something in her tone made the laughter stop. The chamber grew quiet again, but this time the silence felt different. Dangerous. "You've been watching us," Kim continued. "From outside our system, recording our transmissions. studying our technology. But you made one mistake. She paused, letting her words sink in. You assumed we weren't watching back? Council member? Zothar's tail twitched nervously. Impossible. Our monitoring stations are completely hidden. Our technology is far superior to Station Game 7, is hidden behind Jupiter's third moon, Kim interrupted. Station Batu maintains position at the edge of the Kuiper Belt. Station Alpha Prime sits in the asteroid field between Mars and Jupiter, disguised as a mining operation. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Voltar's four eyes widened in disbelief. You cannot know this. Kim smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. It was not a pleasant expression. Earth thanks the Council for the 3 centuries of uninterrupted research and development time, she said. We've put it to good use. She turned and walked toward the exit, her footsteps echoing in the stunned silence. At the threshold, she paused and looked back. The treaty has ended. And Earth comes with fire and steel. Entrance dilated shut behind her, leaving the Galactic Council in chaos. 6 months had passed since Admiral Kim Soo-jin walked out of the Galactic Council chambers. 6 months since her words had left the most powerful beings in the galaxy speechless. 6 months since Earth had declared its independence from 3 centuries of forced isolation. The Council had expected immediate retaliation. It had prepared for human ships to come bursting out of the Sol system, weapons blazing, ready for war. Instead, they got something far more unsettling. Nothing. Complete silence. Commander Park Jin-woo floated in the command center of Station Omega, Earth's most advanced orbital facility. Hidden behind Saturn's rings, the station had been monitoring galactic communications for decades. But now, for the first time in human history, they weren't just listening. They were actively interfering, Report Park said quietly, his eyes focused on the holographic display showing galactic patrol routes. Lieutenant. Lee So-young turned from her console, her young face serious. The hegemony lost another patrol fleet this morning, the HSS Dominant and her escorts. They were investigating the Kepler sector. How many ships? 12. All heavy cruisers. Lee paused, checking her readings again. Sir, they didn't send a distress signal. They didn't report any contact. Just ... stopped transmitting. Park nodded slowly. It was the same pattern that had been repeating across the galaxy for months. The Gemini ships would arrive at their patrol coordinates, begin their routine scans, and then simply vanish from all communication networks. No explosions, no debris fields, no trace of what had happened to them. What about the vegan collective science vessels? Park asked. 3 more missing near the Horsehead Nebula, Lieutenant Kim Hae-won reported from another station. Research ship Deep Thought was studying quantum fluctuations when contact was lost. Their automated systems continued transmitting for 6 hours after the crew stopped responding. Park walked to the main viewing screen, which showed a real-time map of the galaxy. Red dots marked the locations where ships had gone missing. The pattern was clear to anyone who knew how to look. The disappearances formed a perfect circle around known human observation posts. They're getting scared, he said quietly, sir. Lee looked up from her console. The Council. They're sending more ships to investigate, but they're not finding anything. That frightens them more than if we had destroyed their fleets outright. The truth was simpler than the aliens imagined, and far more terrifying. The missing ships weren't destroyed. They were being studied. Every crew member was alive and well, though they would have no memory of the past few hours when they woke up. Their ships were being examined, their technology analyzed, their weapons tested. Humanity had learned patience during 3 centuries of isolation. They had learned to watch and wait. Most importantly, they had learned to think several steps ahead. Dr. Han Myong's voice crackled through the communication system. Commander Park, we're ready for the next phase. How are our guests? Park asked, confused but cooperative. The hegemony crew from the HSS Dominant is particularly interesting. Their neural patterns show they've never encountered stealth technology like ours. They literally cannot comprehend how we appeared inside their shields. Park smiled grimly. The human ability to think outside established patterns had always been their greatest strength, while the galaxy had spent centuries perfecting existing Humanity had been inventing entirely new approaches to old problems. What about their quantum communication network? Park asked. Completely compromised, Dr. Han replied cheerfully. We've been listening to their private council sessions for weeks. They're planning something big. The quantum communication network had been the galaxy's greatest technological achievement. Instantaneous communication across any distance, completely secure from outside interference. Or so they had believed. Humanity had cracked it in their first year of isolation. They're calling it Operation Cleansing Light, Dr. Han continued. The full Grand Fleet, every ship the hegemony can muster. Their target is Earth itself. Ark's expression didn't change. They had been expecting this. Timeline: 3 months. They're gathering ships from across their territory. The plan is to arrive at Sol System with overwhelming force and end the human problem permanently. Lieutenant Lee looked up from her station, her face pale. Sir, the Grand Fleet. That's over 10,000 ships. The combined might of a dozen species. How can we possibly the same way we've been handling their patrols? Park interrupted gently. By being smarter than they are? The truth was that humanity had been preparing for this moment since the day the isolation treaty was signed. Every year of forced containment had been used to develop new technologies, new strategies, new ways of thinking about problems the galaxy considered impossible. Sir, Kim Haewon called out, we're receiving a transmission from Earth. Admiral Kim wants to speak with you. Park nodded. Put her through. Admiral Kim's image appeared on the main screen, her face as calm as ever. Commander Park. Our preparations? On schedule, Admiral. The Council's response is exactly as predicted. Good. It's time for the next phase. Begin moving the planets. The command center fell silent. Even after months of working on the project, the scope of what humanity had achieved was still breathtaking. Yes, ma'am, Park replied steadily. Beginning orbital repositioning now. Kim's smile was sharp as a blade. Let's show them what 3 centuries of human engineering can accomplish. The screen went dark, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Outside, invisible to galactic sensors, the real work was just beginning. The Nexus station hung in space like a massive metal flower, its petals made of gleaming towers that housed millions of beings from across the galaxy. Trade ships from 100 worlds docked at its arms, carrying everything from rare minerals to exotic foods. It was the heart of galactic commerce. It's the one place where all species came together in peace. Captain Choi Minho watched the station grow larger on his view screen as his ship approached. The vessel he commanded looked nothing like the primitive human ships the galaxy remembered. Its hull seemed to bend light around it, making it difficult to focus on directly. Strange energy patterns danced across its surface like living things. Captain, his communications officer, called out, Nexus Control is demanding we identify ourselves. They say our ship doesn't match any known design in their databases. Choi smiled slightly. Tell them we're tourists. We've come to see the sights. Bridge crew exchanged glances. They had been isolated from galactic civilization for 3 centuries, but they were about to make quite an impression. Sir, the weapons officer, Lieutenant Yu Youngmin, reported, their defensive systems are targeting us. Energy shields are activating around the station. Ignore them, Choi said calmly. Proceed to Docking Bay 7. But sir, their shields won't be a problem. The ship moved forward, heading directly toward the station's energy barrier. The crew held their breath as they approached the shimmering wall of force that had protected Nexus Station for over 2 centuries. The shield was designed to stop anything from passing through, whether it was a ship, a missile, or even a single atom. The human ship passed through it like it wasn't there. Alarms began blaring throughout Nexus Station. The Zephyrian commander, General Yefka, stared at his screens in disbelief. Nothing could penetrate their shields. Nothing. The technology was beyond anything most species could comprehend. How did they do that? He whispered. His aide, a nervous young officer with trembling tentacles, checked his readings again. Sir, our sensors show the shields are still active. They're functioning perfectly, but somehow that ship just ignored them. The human vessel settled gently into Docking Bay 7, its landing gear extending with mechanical precision. The bay's atmosphere generators kicked in, filling the space with breathable air. A small crowd of alien dock workers gathered to stare at the strange ship. Captain Choi stood up from his command chair, straightening his uniform. Sergeant Kong, prepare the landing party. Full gear, but keep weapons powered down. We're here to shop, not to fight. Sergeant Kong Yuzhen nodded, his scarred face showing no emotion. He had been a soldier for 20 years, ever since the treaty had trapped humanity in their home system. He had trained for this moment every day since then. The airlock opened. With a soft hiss, and 12 humans walked out into the docking bay. They moved with the easy confidence of people who had nothing to fear. Their uniforms were simple, dark blue with silver trim, but the equipment they carried was like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. Each human wore what looked like a simple jacket. The careful observers would notice that energy weapons bounced harmlessly off the fabric. Their boots made no sound on the metal floor, despite weighing several hundred pounds each. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to know exactly where to go without consulting any maps or guides. Welcome to Nexus Station. A brave Talaxian merchant approached them. I am Merchant Vexstar. Perhaps you need assistance finding. We're looking for the electronics district. Captain Choi interrupted politely. We need to purchase some basic components. Vexstar's multiple eyes blinked in confusion. Basic components? But your technology appears far more advanced than anything we have here. We're collectors, Choi explained with a straight face. We enjoy studying primitive designs. The word primitive sent a ripple of shock through the growing crowd. One had ever called galactic technology primitive before. The humans began walking through the station's corridors, their boots clicking softly on the polished floors. Aliens pressed themselves against the walls to let them pass, whispering in dozens of languages. Word spread quickly through the station's communication network. Humans were here. Real humans, not the isolated prisoners the galaxy had imagined. In the electronics district, the humans began examining various devices with professional interest. They picked up quantum processors that represented the cutting edge of galactic technology and turned them over in their hands like children examining toys. This is interesting, Lieutenant Park Soyoung said, holding up a device that controlled faster-than-light communication. Look at this design. You're still using linear processing paths. It's very inefficient, agreed Specialist Lee Minjin, examining a gravity generator. We solved this problem about 200 years ago. The merchant trying to sell them the devices looked increasingly nervous. That gravity generator is the most advanced model available. It can manipulate space-time itself. Lee Minjun nodded politely. Yes, we can see that. But it only works in 3 dimensions. What happens when you need to access the fourth? The fourth dimension, the merchant stammered. Never mind, Lee said kindly. We'll take 12 of these. I'll make interesting museum pieces. General Yethka burst into the electronics district with a squad of security officers. Their weapons drawn. Surrender immediately. You are under arrest for violating galactic isolation protocols. The humans turned to look at him with mild interest. Captain Choi stepped forward, his hands empty and relaxed. Is there a problem, General? You have no right to be here? Humans are forbidden from leaving their system? Actually, Choi said, pleasantly, we terminated that treaty 6 months ago. We're here legally. I don't care about your treaty. You'll surrender now. Choi sighed sadly. Sergeant Kong, please handle this. What happened next would be talked about in bars and trading posts across the galaxy for decades to come. The humans didn't draw weapons. They didn't activate shields. They simply moved. 12 security officers found themselves disarmed, restrained, and sitting on the floor before they realized what had happened. Their weapons were neatly stacked in a corner, completely undamaged. They weren't hurt, just thoroughly defeated. As I was saying, Captain Choi continued, we're here to shop. Admiral Corthan stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, watching the tactical display with grim satisfaction. Round him, the greatest fleet in galactic history spread out in perfect formation. 10,000 ships from a dozen species representing every major military power in the galaxy. The combined firepower could destroy entire star systems. All fleets report ready, Admiral, his communications officer announced. The young hegemony officer's voice trembled slightly. With excitement, this would be the largest military operation in over 5 centuries. Excellent, Corthan replied, his forearms crossed behind his back. Today we end the human problem once and for all. The fleet had been gathering for months. Every shipyard in hegemony space had been stripped bare. Ancient vessels had been pulled from retirement and refitted with the latest weapons. Even the peaceful species had contributed ships, driven by fear of what humanity might become if left unchecked. "Sir," the tactical officer called out, "we're approaching the Sol system. Long-range sensors are ... strange." Corthon frowned. "Define." "Strange. The planets appear to be in different positions than our star charts indicate. Jupiter should be on the far side of the system, but it's showing up near Mars and Saturn ... Saturn isn't where it should be at all. Sensor malfunction," Corthan said dismissively. "Human jamming technology, trying to confuse our navigation." But as the fleet moved closer to Earth's system, the readings became impossible too. Ignore the planets had indeed moved, not slightly, not due to orbital mechanics, but completely repositioned in ways that defied everything the galaxy knew about physics. "Admiral," the science officer said, her voice barely above a whisper, "the gravitational patterns are all wrong. These planets shouldn't be stable in these positions. The forces involved would tear them apart." Unless the tactical officer said slowly, "Something is actively controlling them." Corthan stared at the display, his confidence beginning to crack. "That's impossible. You cannot move planets. The energy required would be..." "Sir, incoming transmission from Earth," the communications officer interrupted. The main screen flickered to life, showing the image of a human woman in a crisp military uniform. She appeared to be standing on the bridge of a ship, though the background was unlike anything in the galactic databases. "This is Admiral Yoon-hae, one of the Earth Defense Force," she said calmly. "You have entered sovereign human space. Please, state your intentions." Corthan stepped forward, his massive frame casting shadows across the bridge. "I am Admiral Corthan of the Hegemony Grand Fleet. You will surrender immediately, or we will destroy your entire system." Admiral Yoon tilted her head slightly, as if considering his words. "I see. And you brought 10,000 ships to accomplish this. More than enough to deal with your primitive technology." Primitive Yoon's eyebrows rose. "Interesting assessment. Tell me, Admiral, how do you plan to attack a target that isn't really there?" Before Corthon could ask what she meant, the human ships appeared. They didn't decloak. They didn't emerge from hyperspace. They simply materialized out of nothing, as if reality itself had been rewritten to include them. Sleek vessels that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once, their hulls shifting and changing as they moved. "Impossible," Corthan whispered. "We learned a lot during our isolation," Admiral Yoon continued conversationally. "For instance, did you know that space and time are much more flexible than most species believe? Your ships exist in what we call standard reality. Ours exist in several realities simultaneously. The human fleet wasn't large, perhaps 1,000 ships, maybe less. But as they moved into position, something started happening to the hegemony fleet. Ship after ship began reporting system failures. "Admiral, our weapons are offline," the tactical officer reported, panic creeping into his voice. "Sir, engines are not responding," called out the navigation officer. "Communications with the fleet are failing," added the signals officer, Corthan. Spun around, watching his bridge crew frantically work their controls. "What's happening? We're not attacking your ships," Admiral Yoon explained, her voice still calm. "We're simply adjusting their relationship with reality. Your weapons were designed to work in normal space. Your engines rely on conventional physics. Your communications depend on standard quantum mechanics." On the tactical display, the great hegemony fleet was coming to a complete stop. 10,000 ships, the pride of galactic civilization, floating helplessly in space like ancient relics. "We operate on different principles now," Yoon continued. We've learned to think beyond the limitations that have held the galaxy back for millions of years. While you perfected existing technology, we invented entirely new forms of science. Is impossible, Corthan said, but his voice lacked conviction. Is it? You've been watching our system for 3 centuries? Did you ever wonder why we never tried to break out? Why we never sent ships to test your barriers? The truth hit Corthan like a physical blow. You could have left at any time. We could have left after the first 50 years, Yoon confirmed. But we chose to stay. We chose to use the time you gave us to grow beyond what you thought possible. The human fleet began moving through the disabled hegemony ships, not as conquerors, but as gardeners, tending to plants. Medical ships docked with vessels that had crews suffering from the shock of their situation. Supply ships delivered food and water to ships whose life support systems had been gently disabled. Your crews are unharmed, Admiral Yoon said. They will be returned to their home systems with full honors. But they will remember this day. They will remember that the age of threatening humanity is over. Corthan slumped in his command chair, staring at the display showing his mighty fleet. Rendered completely powerless. What do you want to talk? Yoon replied simply. The galaxy has been ruled by fear for too long. Fear of change, fear of growth, fear of species that think differently. We want to offer something better. And if we refuse, Admiral Yoon's smile was gentle but terrifying. Then you'll discover what 3 centuries of human innovation can really accomplish. The screen went dark, leaving Corthan alone with the reality of humanity's new place in the galaxy. The Luna Station conference room was unlike anything the Galactic Council had ever seen. The walls seemed to be made of living light, shifting between colors that had no names in any alien language. The air itself felt different, charged with energy that made every breath taste like possibility. Admiral Kim Soo-jin stood at the head of the curved table, her hands clasped behind her back. She looked exactly the same as she had 6 months ago when she walked out of the council chambers. But everything else had changed. The power dynamic in the galaxy had shifted completely. Around the table sat the most important leaders from across known space. Ambassador Veltar of the hegemony kept his 4 eyes fixed on his hands, unable to meet Kim's gaze. General Kexmore, whose fleet had been rendered helpless without a single shot being fired, stared at the table's surface as if it held the secrets of the universe. Thank you all for coming, Kim began, her voice carrying easily through the room. I know this isn't where you expected to be having this conversation. Council member Zathra's serpentine form coiled nervously. We had little choice. Your demonstration with the Grand Fleet was quite convincing. That wasn't a demonstration, Kim replied calmly. That was restraint. The alien leaders exchanged uncomfortable glances. They had all received the reports. 10,000 ships, the greatest military force in galactic history, disabled without violence. Their crews had been fed, given medical care, and sent home with stories that would reshape how every species viewed humanity. What do you want? Veltar asked quietly. Kim walked to the window, which showed Earth hanging in space like a blue jewel. But even Earth looked different now. Orbital rings surrounded the planet, massive structures that seemed to pulse with their own light. Ships that bent space around them moved between installations that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. We want to propose a new treaty, Kim said. It's not of isolation, but of integration. Integration? General Kexmore's voice cracked slightly. You want to join galactic civilization? We want to lead it? Kim corrected gently. The room fell silent. Dr. Han Myung, who had been quiet until now, stepped forward. She was a small woman with kind eyes, but the device she carried made several aliens flinch away from her. May I? She asked, gesturing to the table's surface. Kim nodded, and Dr. Han activated the device. The table became a holographic display showing the entire galaxy. But this wasn't the galaxy the Council knew. This version showed things that had been hidden for millions of years. While you perfected existing technology, Dr. Han explained, we developed quantum archaeology. We can see the past, layer by layer, going back to the beginning of time. She touched the display, and the galaxy shifted, showing ancient civilizations that had been forgotten for eons. These are the architects, she continued, pointing to structures that spanned star systems. They existed 2 million years ago. They created most of the technology your species still use today, but they made a mistake. The display shifted again, showing the slow decline of the ancient civilizations. They stopped growing. They reached a certain level of advancement and decided it was enough. They became comfortable, content to maintain what they had rather than push forward. Like us, Zothra whispered. Exactly like you, Dr. Han confirmed. The galaxy has been stagnant for millions of years. Every species reaches a certain point and stops. You've been using the same basic technologies, the same approaches to problems, the same limited ways of thinking. General Park Dong-hook, who had been silent until now, spoke up. Humans think differently. We don't accept limitations. When someone tells us something is impossible, we ask why. When we hit a wall, we find a way around it, over it, or through it. Kim turned back to the assembled leaders. We've spent 3 centuries solving problems you didn't even know existed. We've developed technologies that work outside the rules you thought couldn't be broken. We've learned to manipulate time, space, and reality itself. What you saw with our fleet, added Colonel Limtajan, was just the beginning. We can do things that will seem like magic to you, but we don't want to rule through fear. And what do you want? Beltar asked. Kim smiled for the first time. Since the meeting began, we want to teach you to dream again. We want to show you that the universe is far stranger and more wonderful than you've imagined. We want to help you grow beyond the limitations that have held you back for so long. The holographic display shifted once more, showing a vision of the future. Ships that existed in multiple dimensions explored galaxies beyond their own. Civilizations that had learned to manipulate fundamental forces worked together to solve problems that spanned space and time. This is what we can build together, Kim said. Not human dominance, but human partnership. We'll share our knowledge, our technologies, our ways of thinking. In return, you'll contribute your own strengths, your own perspectives, your own dreams. And if we refuse, General Kexmore asked. Kim's expression didn't change. Then you'll continue as you have for millions of years. Stagnant, limited, slowly falling behind as we move forward alone. The silence stretched for long minutes. Finally, Ambassador Veltar spoke. What would this partnership look like? Like nothing the galaxy has ever seen, Kim replied. Human innovation combined with alien wisdom. Human ambition guided by alien. Experience human technology enhanced by alien creativity. Dr. Han touched the display again, showing star maps with routes that defied conventional physics. We've already begun exploring beyond this galaxy. We've found things out there that will change everything you think you know about existence itself. We're offering you the chance to join us, Kim said. Become part of something greater than any single species could achieve alone. To help us turn the entire universe into something beautiful and strange and wonderful. The council members looked at each other, seeing their own fears and hopes reflected in alien eyes. The age of galactic stagnation was over. Age of human guided. Expansion was about to begin. Where do we start? Belter asked quietly. Kim's smile was bright as a star. We start by teaching you to ask better questions. The treaty was signed 3 hours later, beginning a new chapter in galactic history.